In the year 2028, one Big Mac will equal $1 million. From the Gospel of John McAfee. Bro, just learn to code. The Project Freedom Podcast.
Boom. Hi, I'm Josh, and welcome to the Project Freedom Podcast, episode number 7. Actually, this is number 5. Sorry, guys. Episode number 5, where we discuss anything and everything that has to do with sovereign individualism and living a lifestyle that you want to live. And tonight, I got someone pretty special for you guys. I have a nice guest. Before we put him on and introduce you guys to him, I got a video I want you guys to play, or I want to play for you guys because I think it's prevalent and hilarious. So here's this. Oh, there's Greg real quick. But what's up, Greg? Before we get talking, everybody check this out. And you too, Greg, because I think it's funny.
You don't deserve your money. You don't deserve the profits that are coming. Bitcoin. Listen up, you fucking pussies. I see a lot of you fucking guys acting like big old Billy motherfucking badass when the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency market is through the roof. Now, everybody is a fucking pussy, all right? You guys are fucking idiots, straight up. If you're worried right now, this is your come to Jesus moment. You're fucking an idiot if you think that governments who throughout history have a concrete fucking resume of fucking everything up. If you think that the government is going to stop cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, all these things, you don't deserve your money. You don't deserve the profits that are coming. Bitcoin is going to hit $100,000 this year. Mark my fucking words. And here's another thing. Stop reading Yahoo Finance News and go fuck yourself.cnn. I'm a fucking loser. All this shit people talking about, China's destroyed Bitcoin. Really? Have you not learned through this goddamn global scamdemic, all right, and the 4 years of Trump's presidency that you can't fucking trust the goddamn media? Are you missing a goddamn chromosome? What in the actual proper fuck is going through that fucking hollow space up here? Because you clearly don't have a brain, all right? So if you're worried about the cryptocurrency market and this message of hurts your fucking little feelings, block me. Block me right now. Unfollow me because I don't need poor and stupid people in my consciousness, all right? Blows my motherfucking mind. Buy the dip, idiots, now.
What do you think about that, Greg?
I could not agree more. Maybe I would phrase things to people that I work with and talk to a little bit more friendly. But the sentiment is absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. 100%. I could not agree more.
I just thought that it was hilarious. For you guys who don't know who that is, that's Jonathan from Modern Light Dating. Go ahead and give him a subscription or subscribe to his channel on YouTube because he's hilarious and he's helped a lot of people too. Or if you just want to follow him on Instagram to watch his funny videos, it's at HotDudeLife on Instagram. But tonight, guys, I have a good friend of mine, Greg, and we're just gonna do kind of open forum tonight and just pick your brain, Greg, because the last time I talked to you personally was last time I talked to you that it wasn't involving Celsius or something business-wise was probably a little bit more than a year ago, right? Back in
It's been too long. It's been too long, Josh. It's good to be back. It's good to be on with you.
Yeah, back in 2020, early 2020, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early on in the pandemic times, actually, right shortly, I think, after that kind of started.
Yeah, and actually, around that time, that was when the big COVID crash happened, and you were dubbed Hot Dude Army's Dip Buyer of the Year, if I'm correct.
Yes. That's the kind of the running joke that people keep bringing up. It's funny, that was my real big first foray into crypto, if you will, and you know, just to jump right in, right? Like that's kind of how I got into crypto, you know, seriously at least, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, I've told you kind of privately in the past that, you know, I mean, I started all the way back in 2010, 2011 when Bitcoin was still kind of a joke. You know, it was an internet, you know, kind of sensation. It was a thing that, you know, people on 4chan and Reddit and whatnot would talk about. And, you know, a lot of my friends were like, you know, this is the future of money and blah, blah, you know, and I was a college student. I was partying. I was having a good time, spending my money on drinking and dates and, you know, going out to the bars and God, man, I wish I had kept up with it because, you know, I had some Bitcoin. I had some Bitcoin. And I think I've told you this, but, you know, I lost some Bitcoin, you know, when I was doing it back then because I was mining it. You know, this was back when we could still actually mine it on fairly regular computers. You know, and you know, when I told my buddy, you know, that I was doing it with, I was like, dude, this is like magic internet money. It's never gonna go anywhere. It's never gonna happen. Which I know is a cliche, but you know, I'm willing to readily admit that I was a part of that crowd as well. But what I did was I actually kept up with the news of Bitcoin and crypto in general. You know, like from that point forward, you know, even though I didn't keep it or pay, you know, or like hodl any of it, right? I still paid attention. You know, I watched people like Max Kaiser and Stacy Herbert on Russia Today. You know, I paid attention to, you know, people that were talking about it, but I also paid attention to others, you know, and so some of that FUD got me, like the Peter Schiff early on, you know, saying like, it's worthless. It's nothing.
It's 1-0.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, and I watched the various bull markets happen, and then I really paid attention during the 2017 run, you know, and I kept telling myself, I'm like, I'm too late, you know, it's never gonna come back down, blah, blah, blah. And we watched, you know, we can look back and we can see that, you know, we all watched it go to 20K and then plummet back down to like the, you know, the 3,000 range, you know, after that. And everyone was like, it's going to zero. It's never coming back, you know, and that's when I was like, okay, I need to start really paying attention to this now, you know, and I'll admit, you know, even after that bull run, you know, when it went back into the bear, I fell victim to, you know, my own psychology, much in the same way that many other people do. In that, you know, once it hit those low numbers, I was like, oh, it's, you know, maybe it's not going to come back. And it's hard, right? Like when you're in those low periods, it's very hard to tell yourself psychologically that this is a discount and the time to buy.
Yeah, look, I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013, right? And like basically I wasn't buying it because I was buying it to use it to buy other things, but I didn't. I always kept some, right? Because I would use these services frequently, or as frequently as some college kids would, right? And I actually had a friend, and you know this because I've talked to you about this personally, but I had a friend who was one of my fraternity brothers, and he was in the computer science department with me. And he actually like had really bad grades, right? Like he had really bad grades and he like never went to class. But he was probably one of like the smartest dudes I've ever met. And I remember like, this was like, I think maybe my sophomore year in school. And, honestly, and this is the thing I tell a lot of people all the time, with like learning how to code and going to school and stuff. If you just go to college, it doesn't necessarily like teach you how to code, right? So at this point in college, my dog's about to jump off the damn balcony. At this point in college, like I didn't really know a whole lot of code, but he did, and he knew a lot more than me just from like doing stuff, on his own outside of school since he was a kid. Yeah, and he was the person who actually introduced me to Bitcoin. And basically, when he was telling me about it, he was like, "Hey, like one day this is going to be like something really valuable. It's going to be something extremely valuable." And he told me about, how basically like the whole financial system, how it's basically just fugazi, right? It's confetti money that we have right now. And I think most people in here probably already know that. And then I started getting like super conspiracy theorist, Josh, and I was like super conspiracy theorist and everything. I was like, hey, this is true. But I never specifically hodled Bitcoin back then because in my mind, at least not as much as I should have or could have, right? In my mind, I was like, dude, the U.S. government's like way too powerful. Like, there's no way this could like ever take off. And just the whole concept of like decentralization wasn't to me, it was like, it's no way. Like, right? Surely they could just go there and they'll just like take people out. But it seems like it just kind of spread like a wildfire, just everywhere so fast. Before they could even do anything about it, it was just everywhere, right? And next thing you know, everyone's running nodes and everyone's mining it and everyone's using it. So that's, kind of like the same sentiment. And yeah, the whole reason why is just because in my mind, I was like, it's never going to actually take off. But then slowly throughout time, it basically did, right? However, that kind of like doubt still always like would linger in my mind from time to time. And I remember I was talking on my channel the other night, maybe like 1 or 2 episodes ago, about back in like 2016, December 2016, in the 2017 time range, back when it like first hit like 18, 19, 20K. Yep. And then I had coworkers who were like, dude, like you need to sell like that stuff that you have because it's going to zero. And yeah, at the time, sometimes I'd always think like, there's no point in buying more, like, because they're just never gonna let it take off, right? So I want to ask you, like, since you were the dip buyer of the year of that little incident, I think it dropped to like the $3,000 range, right? So like, what were you thinking when you were like, all right, I'm gonna go, fuck it, I'm just gonna go and buy some, even though it's going all the way down to $3,000 and everyone's panicking. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, like I kind of went down that same path. I watched Occupy Wall Street happen. I saw, the perils of the financial system as it is, and that the printing of money and the actions by the Federal Reserve doing what it does best, which is, stealthily taxing people via inflation and money printing, is wildly unacceptable, right? And so I still had that in my mind back from, my early college days, 2008, when that was really occurring. And so, but I went down the same path as you. I thought, okay, well, it's going nowhere, but maybe it is going somewhere, And so after the 2017 run, I kind of screwed around. I didn't really get in, but I paid a lot more attention to it after that bull run was over. And when about March 15th, 16th, 20th happened, right? That's when, the coronavirus crash happened, right? God, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to get you banned. But what I did, and it's a funny story, and I've told this a couple times. I may have told you before, but what I did was I didn't, I had Coinbase set up at that point. I had, a couple other things set up, but I didn't have like the bank accounts linked and all of the KYC set up in the way that, was going to give me the full access to be able to buy and pay as fast as I wanted to do it. And I knew that this is going to be a short-lived crash and I need to get whatever I want to get right now. And so what I did is I went to the bank and I went to the ATMs and I pulled out literally as much cold hard cash as I could get my hands on. And I jammed all of that into a Bitcoin ATM, like the closest one to where I was living at the time. And the guy in that vape shop must have thought I was batshit crazy. I mean, I was in there like for like 4 days in a row, just feeding that machine $20 bill after $20 bill.
There's quite a few around my house, and not too long ago, I saw a dude in there with like some fat stacks of cash. He was just like looking around, like making sure no one was looking at him. I was like, I see you.
Yeah, well, and like it's funny because at one point I actually put in so much that I maxed the machine out. It couldn't take any more dollars in there, which is funny. And so, and at that point, that's where I really had to learn. I was like, I'm learning as I go. Like I was like, I got to set up a hot wallet to send this to. I gotta do these things to be able to get my crypto and store it in the meantime, right? And so I did as much as I could at that point. And from that day forward, really crypto has been, almost a second full-time job for me. When I'm not working, when I'm not doing the 9-to-5 corporate life, I'm working on crypto. I'm researching, I'm paying attention, I'm looking at charts, I'm trying to figure out like, what's the next thing? Where are we going with the market? So that's really my foray into crypto. And, and obviously, since then, we've all kind of run in the same circles and, been hitting the ground running with it. And it's been a wild ride, I'll tell you.
Yeah, for sure. The Bitcoin ATMs, they used to be a lot different than they are nowadays. Nowadays, most of them require KYC, AML information, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously starting to, and there's going to be, and I would say, I think over time we're going to see more regulation. We're going to see more of that happening, no matter what, And that's, and that's an obvious byproduct of, something that is essentially like, as Raul Paul puts it, like pure capital almost, and speaking specifically about Bitcoin, right? And something that can't just have more printed under people's feet, that is something that hasn't existed in history, in the history of humans, right? Of the ability to have something that is immutable and not changeable and can't be messed with, right? That like the blockchain technology in general. I mean, that's a gift, I think, to us, to the average everyday person. I mean, that is a key that we have had to the financial system for the last few years now. That's never existed in the history before, period.
I agree on the blockchain tech part of it. Speaking of that, so, and blockchain doesn't necessarily have to be decentralized, right? Like they're currently trying to make all the banks are working on CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, right? So and they're touting that, we have a blockchain, so it's Bitcoin and all these other cryptos are just going to be useless now, right? But from what we know, people who already know, like the thing that makes at least, let's just talk about the Bitcoin network, for example. The thing that makes it the most valuable and the more trustworthy one is the fact that it's decentralized, right? Mm-hmm. So like what parts of, and since we are on the Project Freedom podcast, what parts of just blockchain technology and decentralization do you think are like, the most important to just freedom for people in general? Why is it important that, we have some sort of like thing such as the Bitcoin network with literal capital that people can use, that's immutable, like you said, can't be changed, can't be tampered with, and is decentralized? Like, why wouldn't it be better for, let's just say Facebook? They have their crypto that they're working on now, right? Libra. I think they're doing like a stable coin now, right?
Yeah, I think they've gone away from the Libra name because it got some, bad press early on. But yeah, so in the realm of like cryptocurrencies and central bank digital currencies, right? Like we know that most countries are working on something at this point. China's coming out with its digital yuan. Germany's working on something. Even, our current Federal Reserve has kind of hinted that they're looking at that as well. And so I think the cat is out of the bag at this point, right? Like their blockchain technology is not going away. IBM has been working on things. Various central banks, not even just central banks, but regular banks have been coming out with their own blockchain technology for interbank transfers and being able to kind of not only transfer, but verify data sent between these various entities at faster and better speeds and more efficiently than we've been able to do in the past, right? Like we obviously have like the SWIFT system and some of these other things that are, in my opinion, very obviously antiquated at this point.
Yeah, but definitely.
I would caution people on putting central bank digital currencies in the same bucket as truly decentralized finance, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Polkadot, and these different things that are starting to come up. Because with central bank digital currencies, right, like a lot of them are going to be built on Ethereum technology. And, I'm sure you've mentioned on this podcast before, most of decentralized finance as we sit here today is going to be on the Ethereum blockchain with those ERC20 tokens.
I believe so.
And so what I think is going to happen here is you're going to start seeing these central bank digital currencies being issued. But my worry is that some of the nefarious things, and let me put my tinfoil hat on here, right? But I think some of the more nefarious things that are going to start cropping up over time are going to be things like having the money being able to expire, or having the ability for certain individuals who may hold controversial political views to be able to have their money shut off just like that. Right. These are very real things that, we see in the news and we see in politics today that I think, very obviously are going to translate right into the world of central bank digital currencies, and so when I see those centralized kind of solutions show up for, currencies and whatnot that, use the blockchain almost more as a buzzword than anything else.
Yeah.
I view it no differently than, than any regular fiat currency today. They can print an infinite amount of it. They control it. They can cut you off on it. They can make it expire. They can prohibit you from using it on certain things. That's not decentralized finance. That's not cryptocurrency in the way that Bitcoin and Ethereum and, decentralized finance in general is building. We're building a different system here. We're building a system where people can really have control of their capital and have a real ledger. And one of the funny things is that I explain it like this for people who are new, right? And tell me if this makes sense, right? It's like a piece of receipt paper printing out of a machine, but it's everybody's transactions forever, and you can't change that piece of receipt paper. So at any point, anyone can go back and look at that receipt and say, oh, look at that. I own this, and I have those keys to that, crypto. And as a result, you can preserve that capital on there, unlike what you can do within the fiat markets. And that's a huge, huge thing. And I think it bears repeating, because I don't think people truly understand that inherent difference between the traditional finance world and what we're building over here in the blockchain space.
I totally agree. And a lot of people get confused and they think that yeah, that cryptocurrency stuff, that's just stuff that people use for like hacking and to steal money and stuff, right? And what do we see with the and speaking of tinfoil hats, I think that the whole Colonial Pipeline thing was it's a little bit suspicious if you ask me, but
little sus, absolutely.
Yeah, but people are like, oh, like yeah, it's people just use it so they can just buy drugs and stuff with. Yeah, I mean, people use lots of other things to buy drugs with. First and foremost, I mean, first of all, that's a bad argument, but two, like the whole point of the blockchain isn't so that you can just hide stuff, right? If people don't understand how a ledger works and the blockchain is the fact that it's immutable, is it's a list of transactions, like you said, that go on for forever, right? So everything is open, everybody can see everything. That's why, at least with this market, as opposed to like the equities market, it's a little bit, if there is manipulation, sometimes it's a little bit easier to tell, right? Because, you can see when things are being moved around, you can see when things are being sold, you can see a lot of things that you can't see in other markets because it's fully transparent. And that's what I call like a free and open market, right? People get really upset about the price volatility of this stuff, but that's the consequences of having a 100% true and free open market, because it doesn't close. It's open 24/7. Everybody can see everything on it. But speaking of the central bank digital currencies, so let's just say, in my opinion, like, all right, let's just say that they do. Some of them do decide to say, hey, we're gonna put our US or our digital dollar or whatever it is, digital yuan or whatever, on the Ethereum network. Mm-hmm. That's fine, but like, I'm not gonna use it unless I can look at their smart contract and like read their code, because otherwise, at that point, like, you're better off just buying the cum rocket, right? Because whoever wrote the code for that, they can just basically do whatever they want, right? Once that thing's deployed on there, there's not a whole lot that like someone can do. So like, that's if I agree too. I don't think that CBDCs or central bank digital currencies like are gonna like. I think that that's just like you said, that's just their way of trying to like stop what they see as being a problem from happening. And, normal people are just going to say, oh, like, now the banks have, like, since we're normies, we trust the banks. They have these currencies and it's regulated and this and that. So we should just put our money in there. But it kind of basically defeats the whole purpose. Real quick, I want to get caught up on the chat because we have quite a few people in here. Let's see. Christopher Boyd says digital yuan represent. Colby says, let's go. What's up, Fido? Rachel says, hi. Blockchain Max says Synthetics and Aave. Synthetics and Aave, what about it? They're great.
Yeah.
Jay Reezy says, good point. I think we all made great points so far. I got too far behind the chat, guys, so I don't know exactly what you're all talking about. M says, Greg's the man. Great guess. Thank you. He is indeed the man. And then two people below him agree with that. Also, Chain says, it's more transparent, which creates the more trust. That's true. That's why you can trust these technologies, right? Because they are transparent. They're not just like hiding what's going on behind the scenes. Fido says orange, and that's because of the orange pill. Yeah. Chain Max says cummies.
Shout out to Max Kaiser for that one.
Yeah, Max Kaiser is pretty base, dude. Osa Chain says ape into cum rocket then? ? Yeah, let's do it. Let's look, fine. Let's all just go ape into cum rocket. The Black Cheap says, everyone watching, smash the like button. Yes, guys, please do. And then Christopher also says, I'm in Beijing, digital yuan, all I'm going to get, LOL. Uh-oh. Yeah, so, okay, so speaking of that too, here's what I was confused about. So China just recently kicked out all their miners, basically, right? They gave them all a big fat boot.
Again, for the God,
right, like the 8th time.
Yeah,
who's counting anymore, right? But they're also trying to. Wasn't China also saying that they wanted to base their digital yuan on the Ethereum network as well?
I don't know offhand, but I would say more than likely what's happening is it's not going to run on the Ethereum chain. What they'll do is, and what I see a lot of people doing, right? Like we've mentioned a few of these meme coins and things right now.
Copy paste code.
Right, and so right, exactly. And so like what you're teaching with, with programming and whatnot, they're copying this base code and then they're taking it and they're changing it inherently, right? So they're telling you like, oh, it's like Ethereum, right? Like, oh, we can't create more, but that's disingenuous because what they're doing is they're taking out all of the parts of these crypto blockchains that are useful and are what keep the integrity of the system going, like decentralization or the prevention of the ability to print more of it at any time. They're removing those and they're basically making it a completely centralized controlled thing. So at that point, like I wouldn't even say it's an ERC-20 at that point. It's a bastardization of that. It is a phony, if you will, and much in the same way of that, fiat currency is a phony for, real capital, like something like physical gold or silver would be.
Agreed. I just find it confusing that it wasn't part of their point. What wasn't part of their point to kick out these miners because part of like the energy FUD? Wasn't that something to do with it? But then are they not going to be running their own? I mean, we could talk about the energy thing, I guess, because that would just be a whole topic in of itself. And I'm sure I understand. I think you feel the same way about it that I do, right?
Yeah. But when it comes to the China FUD, honestly, it's not new news, right? Like if you just look up like China bans cryptocurrency, you will find articles pretty much every year for the past like 6 years. This is not new news, right? Like it's blatant market manipulation, and it's and I can't dog on China too much because it's not just China, right? This is Janet Yellen and the Fed are just as guilty of it. The European Central Bank is guilty of this as well. Same with like Jamie Dimon, with JP Morgan and, and all these other big banks, they all have an incentive to kind of spread that FUD around, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt with the regular people to get them to either sell their positions or not trust that these are ways of actually storing value. And it's insidious, in my opinion, frankly, because it's preying on people who don't know any better and getting them to stay within the pen that is the existing financial system where
they want to be slaves.
You want to talk about a rug pull? Fiat currencies are a rug pull. I mean, we have across the G7, the amount of money printed in the last 1 year alone is something like, I think for the United States is something like 40% of all the money in existence was printed like this last year. I mean, that is outrageous. That's like if you had $20 in your pocket, suddenly it's worth 40% less. I mean, like, how is that not stealth taxation, right?
Pretty ruggy of them. Yeah, 100%. And like, even it kind of started before even the whole gold standard thing. But I mean, that was just kind of like nail in the coffin, right?
Yeah. And
after that, I mean, the slowly but surely, and there's two different kind of rug pulls, right? And since you're talking about Max Kaiser, I'm a huge fan of their show and their show on RT. And actually, I think it was either today or yesterday they had a show called the Rug Pull or whatever, and they were talking about Mark Cuban getting rugged from that Iron Finance or whatever. But one thing they talked about was like the old-fashioned rug pull that we just talked about. I mean, there's really two different kinds. There's like the immediate rug pull where they just like you immediately just get the rug pulled out from underneath you, and there's the kind that like slowly over time, just like boiling a frog, you slowly turn the heat up, and then all of a sudden, poof, all your money is worthless, right? And I mean, the U.S. dollar in the current financial system, our current whole monetary system in the whole entire world is just basically a giant Ponzi scheme, right? And it's, to me, in my opinion, and you can tell me what you think, but I think that, you know, all this FUD is just kind of like just a way to prevent people from, because I don't really see any other reason why that they would just not want people to just be sovereign and just be free, other than the fact that they just want people to stay enslaved, I guess, for their own benefit, or so that, you know, I don't know. And so I just think that all this like FUD stuff, and, you know, everyone constantly saying orange coin bad, is just another way for all of us to just stay stuck in the matrix, dude. As cheesy as that fucking sounds, and his tinfoil hat, but the same thing with the whole crab-19 epidemic, dude. Like, so many stupid things were going on. People were fighting each other over toilet paper. Like come on, like you got to be kidding me. And then everyone's just kowtowing and just obeying the news as if the news is some sort of gospel. Like, I don't get it. Why do you think that they don't want people to be sovereign? Why do you think that they want people to just basically stay inside their little system?
Well, I mean, you know, and we can look back at history and see, you know, the history of how humans behave and how humans interact with each other, right? Like, governments rise and fall, empires rise and fall over time, and the key to all of that has always been the monetary systems of these various, you know, empires, right? And the big difference that we have today versus what we had in the past, right, is going to be the interconnectedness of everything. With the advent of the internet in the 90s, I mean, all of a sudden we have this emerging global economy. And I would argue that people are still trying to figure out how everything quite kind of fits together into this global economy. And the monetary systems across the board are absolutely no different whatsoever, right? If you know, there's a saying that I hear a lot, you know, he who controls the gold makes the rules. And as a result of that, right, if you control the monetary system and you have people within that monetary system and they don't have a way of bartering or trading or doing anything else outside of that, you essentially control them, because you can cut them off at any time. You can debase the currency and print more of it and essentially stealthily tax people. You can use monetary and fiscal policy to kind of, you know, either encourage people to spend money or encourage people to save money. And now, you know, now with the advent of modern monetary theory, we see things like this infinite QE, quantitative easing, and these other tools that, you know, of the Fed and the central banks that serve no other purpose than to kind of kick the can down the road, you know, because we know when we look at these balance sheets and we look at how much money exists out there in the, you know, M1, M2, et cetera, it's an outrageous amount of money, you know, and does it ever make it back down? Does it trickle down to the average person? I would argue absolutely not. You know, we all know we've gone out, we've seen the increasing prices of food. We've seen the increasing prices of vehicles, used cars, housing, for God's sakes. You know,
yeah.
look
used cars. Dude, yeah, BlackRock with the houses too. Hopefully, hey, BlackRock, if you're listening out there, I'm selling my house, getting listed next Monday. So, you know, if you want to make me an offer 50% over asking value, feel free. The used cars thing, dude. I don't know if he's in the chat. Yeah, he is. Sam Perchinsky. He was up on his used cars. He's like, I'm going to sell it, dude. My used car. I have a 2017 model car. And like I think it gained like $8,000 in value, at least so far as Kelly Blue Book is telling me, in just this last year. Not to mention, okay, so you know, my house has increased a lot in equity in this last year, which just the amount, obviously houses are supposed to go up, right? But the amount that it increased this year is just fucking retarded. Makes no sense. But a used car, the number one most appreciating asset, gaining $8,000 in 1 year, that doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. This is just something is not right. Right. And it's just happening at a rapid rate now. Right.
Just as you said, that is the canary in the coal mine. You know, that's that bird croaking over and going like, oh, something's wrong, you know, and people should be paying attention to this. And I fear that a lot of people are falling victim to that normalcy bias and saying like, well, you know, I can still put food on the table and, you know, I can still pay my rent and, you know, get gas and go to work and whatnot. But, you know, there's something to be said for that concept of like that, you know, frog in the pot of water that's slowly boiling, you know, and I fear for what this means long term for us, because I don't think people realize what the ramifications of this type of monetary policy is going to actually result in.
What do you think is going to happen?
If I had to guess, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, because we can see that governments across the world have absolutely zero, incentive to stop printing money, and there's many theories about it. I mean, we can look at like dollar milkshake theory, which basically says like everything will continue to kind of prop up the U.S. dollar as long as the U.S. dollar is, used as the primary world trade currency, and everyone kind of keeps printing money at roughly the same rate. Because what that means is that you can't really arbitrage products and services across the various countries, because the price of labor, like if I was in the United States and I want to hire somebody from China to do some programming work, for instance, as long as the United States and China are inflating their currencies at roughly the same speed, those services don't really change too much. And as a result, your average everyday person going about their business, working their 9-to-5 job, buying gas, paying rent, they're not going to notice a big difference in what's going on. Meanwhile, though, we do see those prices rising. We do see things getting a little bit more, in a shaky position financially. And the question just becomes, how long can we kick this can down the road before we actually run into a real, financial collapse, if you will? And I don't know that there will be an actual real financial collapse if we're able to, keep printing money and keep doing these monetary and fiscal policies in such a way that it just ever so slowly lowers everybody of the regular working class into a scenario where they really can't afford anything extra besides food and water and getting to work. I think, I think people will get into that point, and then, in a few years, they'll be wondering, like, how did we get here? How come I can't go on vacation anymore? How come I can't buy a PlayStation? These things.
I can't buy a house.
Yeah, these things will become unattainable after a very short period. And I mean, God, you want to get into the housing thing? You look at things like the World Economic Forum saying straight up to people, you will own nothing and you will be happy. That should send chills down the spine of everybody who's paying even one iota bit of attention here, because these people are not kidding. This is not conspiracy theory. This isn't tinfoil hat. These are very, very powerful people and very powerful forces that are, I would even say, like supranational. These are beyond your nation states, beyond your United States versus China versus Russia, right? These interests are beyond that, and they have their own kind of, agenda that they're looking to do, and that's something where, that pesky cryptocurrency comes in and is just a little chink in their armor. And it started as a chink, and now it's starting to really look like a threat to that. And that's why I think we're starting to see the ramping up of this negative press towards cryptocurrencies to scare people away from it, frankly.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. And the thing is too, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if we'll actually ever have like a legitimate, like, collapse, right? Because I mean, look how crazy things got last year or 2 years ago, however long. I'm all my days are just meshing together now after so much work. But like the whole crab 19 thing, like, look how crazy things got, man. So imagine if something bad actually really did happen. Like, people would be, it would not be good, right? So I don't think that they'll ever actually let it get that way. If they are still within the power to, keep things afloat the way that it is, I don't think that they ever will let it get that way, right? And they will most certainly keep printing money. I can guarantee that. But that boomer coin thing that they hate so much, they don't understand is that every time they print money, they're doing damage to themselves. And it's almost as if the person who wrote the code for this stuff, the person who came up with the idea, kind of had a little idea about everything was going on right now, right? And that's why I have this little guy up here, little egg guy, with the money coming in its mouth. Basically, every time money gets printed, he grows, and the whole entire market grows behind it, right? So, the question I have for you: did you see that lightning in the background? Holy smokes, that was cool.
Yeah. That's Florida for you, man.
Yeah, it's a sign. A question I have for you is, so okay, if we don't actually have a legitimate collapse, all right, and if they continue to keep printing money, maybe something, it's just obviously things are going to continue to get worse, right? We'll just literally be living in a clown world. We'll just be having USD airdrops to everybody once a week or whatever, right? And one solution that I could think of, and some people really don't like this idea. Some people really don't enjoy this idea. But one solution I could think of is if this thing over here gets pegged to $1, that is an option, and that would solve some problems, right? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think so. It's just that I don't think there's any easy way out of it, right? I think we've kind of backed ourselves between a rock and a hard place with how we're going to get out of this. Now, to call back to, what this podcast is about sovereignty, right? And so I think the more important, aspect of this is to, for us to continue building these separate systems and start making our own economy and start making our own culture to really kind of start to separate and start to, give us the ability to trade amongst ourselves and, have a better system. There's no reason, as we look at history, there's no reason why we can't build a better system. And if the powers that be, or whatever you want to call them, are going to try to force people into this, slow rug pull, if you will, of their own, worth, and their own ability to build capital, then I see no reason why people shouldn't at least even slowly start accumulating, different positions in these, in Bitcoin and Ethereum, these different things. And not financial advice, but, those are things that I'm doing, right? Because, I want my own financial sovereignty. I don't want to have to be beholden to, a government check every week, and so these are things that I take very seriously. And as a result, I'm always looking at, like, what does the market say? What is happening in it? Why are these things occurring? And all of the answers always point to the same thing, which is that system, the fiat system as we knew it throughout the 1900s or so, it's slowly but surely coming to an end, and we look at the adoption curve of crypto. It is actually accelerating faster than the adoption of the internet, and I remember a time, when people were saying, like, oh, email, like, no one's going to use that long term, that's going to fall by the wayside. And look at where we are now, right?
Yeah, now all of us have like 20 different emails, right?
Exactly.
So are you a maxi?
No, and I'll tell you why, right? Because it would be ridiculous to think that there is only Bitcoin or that there is only Ethereum. These are fundamentally different things. Like Bitcoin is more of a, I view it as like digital gold. It's a store of value. It is a immutable ledger. It is that infinitely long printing piece of receipt paper. Whereas you have newer technologies like Ethereum, right? That's been around quite long as well, and it's now proven itself as a useful tool because of smart contracts. And the basics of that, for those of you who might not know, smart contract is just, rather than it being a signed piece of paper and getting lawyers and all these people involved to force you to comply with the the terms and conditions of that contract, this is simply an electronic handshake that requires no third-party intervention. So, like, if I wanted to send you, Josh, some money, right? Like, and we agreed to some kind of trade, we'd have that smart contract that would facilitate that. I put in my input, you put in your input, and then when those inputs meet the conditions of the contract executes. And that is, fundamentally different than what goes on over in the Bitcoin blockchain. And I won't get into too much specifics of it, but to be a maxi in one of these things, I think is really to not have a full view of the larger market of blockchain technology, because it's not just Bitcoin and it's not just decentralized finance on the Ethereum blockchain. It's, now we have the advent of companies like Celsius that are offering yield to people. We have, all of these different projects to do different things, whether they be centralized or decentralized, or, have, maybe a hodgepodge of different features from other currency or cryptocurrencies or blockchains, right? They all do different things and they all have value. in and of themselves that are different, And I mean, there's things like, what's a good example? Like the Ethereum killer narrative, right? Like, oh, Polkadot's going to come along and it's going to take over Ethereum.
It's different, right? It's not even the same thing, right? So like,
exactly.
I agree with you on that, dude. I agree. And I do also believe though that obviously Bitcoin is like the main store of value. Obviously, it's kind of what drives the entire market, right? Mm-hmm. I also believe that if there ever were to be a digital asset that were to be pegged to a fiat currency, that it would only work with Bitcoin, and then it could probably work maybe with like Ethereum too. But because of the policies of Ethereum, it would eventually also fail as well, unless they were to change that, which they can because it's Ethereum and it's smart contracts. But I'm not a maxi either, and obviously these things are used for completely different. They have completely different use cases, right? And like some maxis are like, oh, we're gonna put like smart contracts on the Bitcoin network, like. The whole reason Vitalik went and created Ethereum is because when he tried to do that, it was like the way that Bitcoin network is set up. It's very hard to do that, and it would require a whole lot more than what it's actually worth. But I'm not a maxi, and I agree with you too. Real quick, let me get caught up on the chat again. Oso Chain says low key China simping for BTC. Fido says facts. Blockchain Max says why save the money? They print it. Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah, he's one of the most based old dudes ever, and he's starting to venture away from Boomer Coin, even though he is a boomer. I think he's mining some Ethereum now too. Oso Chain says sovereign individuals aren't as profitable. I think he's talking about the reasoning why they want to kind of keep people in a box, and yeah, that's true, right? I mean, because like, what if you have a person what if their goal sovereign lifestyle is to just live on a boat and they technically don't have to answer to a country, they don't have to like do X, Y, or Z. So how are you going to tax them? How are you going to force them to come over there and like bring their goods and services? You couldn't force them. You'd have to incentivize them, right? And they don't want to have to incentivize people. They think they want to have to force people. That is what I think is part of that. Blockchain Max says we're still locked down in Canada, and the majority of our population already got jabbed. But the jab's a different discussion. Yes, indeed, the jab is a different discussion. We can talk about that another time, though. Jay says housing in Cali is wild. Yeah, dude, I'm seeing all kinds of like crazy numbers over there. I mean, it's wild everywhere too, but specifically in California, I know it's pretty bad over there, and a lot of people are leaving too. I can't blame them. Hamad says computer chip shortage isn't the whole story to used car price escalating. I agree. I think that there's a lot more to it than that. Cody says there's a microchip shortage for new car models, so they straight up aren't making new cars. Yeah. So to go off the person who commented before you, that's part of it too, but I don't think that that's the whole story. I think the same thing goes for like the Suez Canal thing. I think there's a lot more to that as well, because I mean, come on, it's 2021. You're going to tell me that one boat is going to like cause all this problem? I don't. And we can go to Mars.
You look up that Great Reset, people. Just start doing a little bit of going down that rabbit hole, and you'll see what we're talking about.
Yep. Andy says, how come I can't rent an apartment without breaking the bank? Yeah, because, well, ask the money printers over there. Sam Perchinsky says, more USD airdrops. Yes, please send more USD airdrops so that this guy can grow even more, because that's what we inevitably want. Nick Sledgine says, the clown world stuff is because we live in a post-scarcity society. People can afford to live easy, so lots of money gets spent on random stupid stuff. Yeah, I mean, we live in a consumerist society. People agree with you in here as well. Rachel says, my motto, he who holds the gold makes the rules. Yeah, and that might also be, I forgot to mention this too, that might also be another reason as to why, maybe they're trying to like get everyone out of crypto and Bitcoin and all that stuff. Orange coin bad, because maybe, just maybe, they might have a little hunch that one day maybe he who owns all the Bitcoin might make all the rules, right? It's definitely a possibility, right? Oso Chain says, sadly, majority of people are okay with Uncle Gov taking quote unquote care of them. Yes, in fact, Oso, I think a lot of people actually just would prefer that to be the case as opposed to just being sovereign and taking care of themselves. Sam also says, Do I Hood just sent me a letter that I'm receiving that precedes of a class action settlement. Dude, I Hood? I'm not sure what you mean exactly. Oh, Robin Hood. Robin Hood just sent him a letter that proceeds for class action lawsuit. Gotcha. Nick
Maybe
Sledge.
I can get on that. They cut me off of buying GameStop at the beginning too. I was furious.
Did you really? Sue him, dude. Get the USD airdrop. Nick Sledgian also says the Matrix will be the Matrix will be closer to reality, except totally consensual. Yeah, because again, the Great Reset, you will own nothing and you will love it. Right? Gross.
See about that.
Jay says exactly. Control what we can. What can we do to mitigate the effects of mass inflation, crypto, real estate? What else? I mean, we can talk about it here in a second when we finish with the comments, because that's actually a good question. I think we should totally discuss that. Also, Chain says Bitcoin to me is the key to the Citadel and take it to the moon. Agreed. Max, shout out to Max in the chat. CBDCs will become more like airline miles, spin them or lose them. They were talking about that on the Kaiser report today. That the whole airline miles thing. Did you hear about that yet?
What about it?
Basically, like everyone has a credit card that does that gives free airline miles, right? Or a lot of people do, right?
Right.
And because people were stopped traveling during the whole Crab 19 thing. Basically, what had happened was that they thought that, okay, people will, we sell these credit cards, all these benefits. People aren't going to spend any money anymore because, they're going to be scared of the whole economy. So, but what actually happened was people spent just as much money, or almost as much money, and they were still racking up all these airline miles. And basically, the airlines are saying, hey, we can't take your airline miles anymore, even though people have like thousands of dollars of airline miles saved up. Basically, because those airline miles are now worthless because of everything. But
sounds like a rug pull.
Yeah, that's another rug pull too. But let's talk about this. Let's see who said that comment again. It was
hard assets.
Yeah. So back to this. Exactly control what we can. All right. So yeah, he's saying we have to control what we can, which we all try to do. But what can we do to mitigate the effects of mass inflation other than just crypto and real estate? And I'll answer this first because I actually don't even have an answer at the top of my head, Greg. But one thing I wanted to say though, the whole real estate thing, I don't really know. So I don't really know what's going to happen with real estate. The reason I'm selling my house is because it's a rental property, and I had always intended to sell it. It was like my starter, and I wanted to get into another one. But I'm so up on it that to me, it makes no sense to keep it currently if there is a slight chance that the market could go down. And at this point right now, Jay, all they would have to do for the housing market prices to just go down a little bit is just one, they could undo the Rent Moratorium Act, which basically, if you guys don't know, in a majority of places right now, you don't really have to pay rent. Well, you have to pay rent, but you can't become evicted for not paying rent, right? If a landlord wants to evict you, they have to find another reason to evict you other than just, hey, this person didn't pay. And also the courts are all backed up because the courts were closed for this a long time ago. People were trying to send people to the courts to take care of this stuff. And, obviously Crab 19, so people can't go in person. Mm-hmm. Then finally things opened up again. There's just a backlist, a huge queue of all these landlords who want to take their tenants to court to get them out. Right. And then also they could just simply raise the interest rates by 0.5%. And if they did that, that could potentially, collapse the housing market. So I don't know, Jay, if obviously, okay, on a long-term basis, I do believe that real estate is something that obviously is going to at least maintain value over time, if not slightly increase, right? But is it going to be hyperinflated like the way it is now? I don't know. But yeah, Greg, besides crypto and real estate, what advice would you give to this guy as what he can do to mitigate the effects of mass inflation?
So, I'll start by saying, I can't give financial advice. I don't have my license to properly do that. But if it was me, right? And this is, I always speak from a position of what I'm planning on doing myself. And the way that I currently view the market is even real estate isn't really a perfect, store of value because, there's obviously property taxes and homeowners associations and all of these different things that can kind of affect the value of, a particular property, right? As you mentioned, rent moratoriums, eviction moratoriums, varying laws of landlord-tenant relationships in different jurisdictions. And so, I would say don't believe the FUD that's being pumped out right now in many news. I use that word loosely, news publications, about like, oh, millennials are reporting that they regret buying houses in the last couple of years, or you shouldn't buy a house, blah, blah,
My dad
blah.
sent me that article.
Yeah, those are, I mean, and they're everywhere. I mean, these articles are propping up all over the place. And I would say
Dude,
don't believe any of that.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but dude, the one thing I wanted to say is like, dude, I don't know like any other millennials who own a house besides me. Like I know very few. So I don't see how all these minuscule amount of people who like got the ability to buy something that most of their other peers weren't able to do are upset about it, right?
Yeah.
And two, if they did, and I was telling him too, because my dad knows. I've shared my personal financial information with him a couple of times. So he knows how much I owe in the house, and he knows how much it's getting sold for. And I'm like, would you regret like gaining that much equity in a like 13-month time period because of that? I mean, that article does. I read that article too because he sent it to me. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, please continue if you would like, because I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's totally fine, and I think that's a very valid point. I mean, there's not a lot of millennials that own houses. Why is that? Well, because many of us, myself included, took on an inordinate amount of student loan debt, and that was, in my opinion, a poor financial decision on my part. I tell people nowadays that I talk to that are younger, I say, you better really care about what you're getting into education-wise, and if it's not something that you think is really going to actually be a good ROI, a good return on investment with that education, then you probably shouldn't be doing it unless you already are wealthy individually and have the ability to kind of spend that money as if it's an entertainment expense, right? So housing has always traditionally been a way for the middle class to kind of preserve and gain a little bit of wealth and be able to transfer that wealth to their children, as they grow a little bit older. And so with the millennial crowd, we've seen kind of the hindrance of that as a result. I mean, because like I went to school originally in 2008, right? Like entering college. So I entered college on the heels of the collapse of the housing bubble from 2007 into 2008. And ever since then, right? Like, I mean, the houses remained low for a little while and people were fearful and whatnot. But as we've printed money and the QE and all of that's come out over the years, we've seen those prices up and to the right. And, I would say maybe it's not for everybody, right? Your digital nomads and people who want to be like truly like individually sovereign and want to be able to travel the globe and do these different things with, a 7-8 figure crypto portfolio and things. If that's the case, then, maybe you don't need to own a house. You can just jet set around the world and, enjoy yourself. But barring that, for the vast majority of people, I mean, like I can just say, like even in the Midwest markets, right? You're going to spend less money on a mortgage even today than you are on rent.
Yep.
But when you're paying rent, right? So sure, you have the ability to leave, essentially with whatever is left of your lease as a cost to you. But you don't own the property. You're not gaining any equity. The money that you're putting into it is essentially a sunk cost, and that's not a way to build wealth. It certainly doesn't build wealth. It doesn't build equity. You can't take loans on that. It's not an asset that you own. It's just an expense.
Yeah. On top of that too, is like since rent is so expensive now, like if you're paying this exorbitant amount of rent, it's hard for someone to save up for a house too at the same time. So it's also like another thing too. Like, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to get a house unless it's like, this like super nice house that I want because, they think that they're going to get stuck with it. And they don't realize that they can like sell it with equity and actually make money from selling it. They just live in it for a couple of years, right? If like it's better to just as far as a financial standpoint, if I could go back and do it, I would have bought a house at the age of 18, even if it was like a crappy $100,000 house in like, or even, dude, there's some places in like, bumfuck Mississippi that $100,000, $120,000 house is like pretty nice and a lot of land too, and it's not far from a lot of things. Those are the kind of houses that I was renting in. But yeah, I totally agree. And another thing too, Jay, that I would tell you is like, The only other thing I can think of, as opposed to just like putting your money, parking your money into things that are going to like at least maintain or raise in value with inflation, is to learn some sort of like skill that is also going to be increasing in value for what people can pay you for it with inflation too. Because I mean, things like software engineers, developers, IT people, plumbers, electricians, like how many people are going to, in the future, we're still going to have anuses, right? So we're still going to need to like use the bathroom. We're still going to need electricity. We're still going to need all these other things that are like considered trades, like blue collar trades and white collar trades. Dude, I consider like software engineering a white collar trade. Cause I mean, that's basically what it is. Someone's paying you for your knowledge work that a majority of people don't do because they just didn't learn it. And yeah, the same thing that you said, Greg, about school, like, I mean, there's a guy, one of my clients is in the chat right now. And he got a degree that was completely unrelated to what he's doing now. And he was able to get a job as an engineer, paying him very well, without any school. So like even a lot of the STEM degrees now, you don't necessarily need a job. You most certainly don't need to go to school for something like underwater basket weaving, right? And our entire generation was like tricked into thinking like, you got to be a good boy, you got to go to school, and you got to do everything you're supposed to do, right? And then
well, when I was starting college.
Yeah. And now all of our peers have a boatload of debt from school, which, maybe they got a degree and maybe they're still not employed in their field of choice, or maybe that their field of choice is banging them like, maybe they have like $250,000 of debt, and which is on one of my shows not too long ago, I did a breakdown, and I was extremely conservative with the math numbers I was running, but it's totally possible for someone to get $250,000 of debt nowadays, especially, in 2021.
Very
maybe they're getting a job. Yeah. And maybe they're getting a job that's paying them 40, 50, 60K, the first couple of years out of school. And like, how are you ever going to pay that off? I mean, it's just not smart. And that also seems to be part of another thing that they want to do to kind of like try to keep people stuck inside of this little cage. Real quick, again, we'll get caught up on the chat.
Sure.
Kramer says, the way I see it, earlier this year, I was feeling some FOMO about buying a house and almost jumped into it, but then backed off because I realized I was FOMOing. That tells me I should wait, LOL. Yeah, I mean, maybe so, dude. Maybe so. Max Cygnus says, someone's pissed in the soup. I guess someone pissed in the soup. I'm not sure what you mean. We were talking about something in the soup. Black Sheep says, aircraft maintenance is booming. I used to be a contractor, and I got a 3 to 5 phone calls a week about jobs paying between 30 and 40 an hour. Yeah, that's not bad. And again, like aircraft maintenance, I'm sure that you don't go to like school. Like I'm sure you don't get a conventional 4-year degree to learn how to be an aircraft mechanic, right? That's probably like a very, very scarce skill set that people have, that you have to go and either get an apprenticeship or learn from somebody. And 30, 40 bucks an hour. I mean, dude, 40 bucks an hour, that's close to 100K a year. And you wouldn't be a wage cuck with a W-2, which, a majority of people have to do. And if you're a contractor and, you could business expense a lot of that stuff. So your 100K a year would go a lot further than another person's 100K a year. That's for sure. And he also says, in cloud and thunder emoji in Josh's background because the podcast is so dope. Yep. Thor and Zeus know what's up. 2-year technical college. All right. So yeah, you go for a 2-year technical college or something like that. But I mean, technical colleges are a lot cheaper than like, a 4 or 5 year, sometimes 6, 7, 8 year conventional university, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just got like 1 or 2 more questions for you. We could wrap it up because we both have something we got to attend to after this. But speaking of like digital assets and all that stuff, do you prefer to self-custody yours, or do you trust? I know you're a big advocate for the Celsius platform. And I actually do enjoy me some Celsius platform myself too. I've actually like trickled like a chunk of my portfolio over there because why not, right? If you're getting free yield on stuff. But what's some advice you give somebody just getting into this stuff as what they should do? Because let's also be honest here too. Like some boomers, it might be hard for them to like figure out how to work a ledger and like self-custody all that stuff, right?
Yeah, and that is that is a very good point, because I think it's going to depend on the person, and it's going to depend on, you know, your own risk tolerance and your own risk analysis, right? Like I'm a big proponent of centralized finance. I mean, yeah, like not your keys, not your crypto. I understand that, but at the same time, like that will probably in the near future here be considered like essentially stuffing your money in a mattress. It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Like if I take cash and I stuff it in a mattress, it doesn't do anything. It's not earning me any yield. I can't take a loan on that. I can't use that as a tool. It's just sitting there. And when it's cash, it's losing value, as a matter of fact, at the same time. And in many cryptocurrencies as well, you know, excluding Bitcoin, have some level of inflation. And so it's, you know, with the advent of yield in the world of, you know, crypto in general, that has created a new reason for people to actually use, you know, these non-custody wallets, you know, these systems like Celsius or Kraken or, you know, any of these areas that are going to give, you know, good yield on your assets. And so I am a big proponent of it. You know, I have a decent chunk of money within Celsius and some of these other yielding platforms, because I mean, frankly, it's set it and forget it, you know. And with a company like Celsius, and I'm sure down the road there will be competitors as well, you know, you can do interesting things like, you know, take loans, you know, use your existing assets as collateral for, you know, real hard cash to either take new positions in, you know, new assets that are yield bearing or produce some kind of value for you, or even use them as, you know, a down payment on a new property or things. So this is all very, very real, you know, and I know that might sound too good to be true for a lot of people who are a little bit newer to it and think this is just magic internet money, but I can assure you it's absolutely not, you know. Now, am I fully in centralized finance? No, of course not. And I mean, I have some, you know, some private ways of storing these crypto assets as well. And so I think, you know, my biggest piece of advice for everybody would be understand the risks and understand what you're getting into by either holding crypto yourself or keeping it within a company like Celsius or Kraken to earn yield, right? Because on the one hand, you know, if I custody my own crypto and I have that seed phrase, I have to babysit that seed phrase. I have to store it somewhere safe. And if I really have a lot of money there, I need to start doing things like multi-signature, you know, seed phrases and, you know, storing some here and storing some there and, you know, and making it this kind of like almost spy game to get back into my accounts if I lose access to them, right? And these are important and they should be taken seriously because, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why you don't want just one seed phrase or the latest level of security with crypto. And I think a lot of people almost get caught like, you know, oh man, like suddenly I have a lot of money in this account and I need to start thinking about security. And I would say, think about security early on, you know, when you're getting into this and plan that out early so that you can, you know, be set up to do things the right way. But on the other hand, right, we have centralized finance. The risks are completely different, right? So at that point, you're trusting that, you know, that other party that is custodying your own crypto is not going to close your account unexpectedly or cut you off from the funds or, you know, have some kind of counterparty risk that's going to result in a loss of money. So you are having to trust them to a certain degree to be a good custodian for your assets. And that's no different than, you know, a bank or a safety deposit
Chase Bank
like that.
Dude, I trust Celsius more than Chase Bank, to be quite honest with you.
You as well.
And you know, a lot what you said earlier, like some people are like they don't believe it when you tell them like about yield and stuff like that. Dude, when I like try to explain to people like some of the rates that you can get on like, I don't know, just like a stable coin like USDC, they're just like, what? He's like, people are like, it's got to be a catch to that, right? I'm like, no, I mean, there's a slight risk to it, but at the same time, what people don't know is when you keep your cash at like a bank like Chase Bank, even one of the largest branches in the country, if you try to go pull, I was with somebody not too long ago, and we talked about this on the show before, try to go pull just a amount of cash that was, you know, less than $20,000 out, and the bank was like, we don't have it. You gotta take like half here, and you gotta go to our other branch down the street, and you got to get the other half. Like they don't even, and this is in, you know, the city of Miami, and it was in one of the richest neighborhoods in Miami. So it's like,
Yep.
yeah, who do you actually trust, you know? But good points, man. Good points. Another question I would say, and it's probably more of a personal question, but than anything, but like, you know, what are you betting on the most for the next decade as a part of like appreciation and value out of all the digital assets? Like if you had just like one shot, you know, Eminem, you got one shot, and you know you just had just spirit into something, like what would you be betting on the most?
Whew, that is tough. Because 10 years is a long ways out, right? Things can change very quickly in 10 years. I mean, look at what happened with the internet between, 1996 or so, when the early dial-up modems, to 10 years later, where we had cable internet and, a vast network of things that didn't exist and couldn't have even been fathomed before that. So, I mean, right now, if I was to take a risk, 10 years, personally, I'd just put it in Bitcoin and basically sit on it and not worry about it.
I think me too. I think it wouldn't just because of a price appreciation. It would be because I would so far, time has tested, and that's not to say that, things like Ethereum and other things aren't going to become, have equivalent security and everything else. But as time has tested, like the most adoption so far, and has been Bitcoin. And it's for a few reasons, but some of those reasons, because obviously it's a lot older. It's the number one. It's the original, right? But if I just had to guess, I would say we have one country now, El Salvador, accepting it as a literal form of currency. If I had to guess, if I went to sleep in 10 years and woke up, that, probably most of these would be accepted everywhere, like, Bitcoin, Ethereum. But the one that I would say would be the least risky would be Bitcoin. So I think I would agree with you on that. And I think most people would too, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And that's not to say that it's going to have the highest gains, right? As I mentioned, right, like we're talking a 10-year bet thing. I'm telling you right now, like the cryptocurrency landscape, and blockchain technology in general, it's in its infancy still. In 10 years, it's very likely to look quite a bit different than it does right now. And it may not even be very recognizable to what we see today. Like you and I working on, I mean, I won't get too heavy into it, but, we're talking about, new layer 2 solutions and things like ETH 2.0, the Lightning Network for Bitcoin, new technologies like what Polkadot and Kusama are putting out. These things they're powerful, and they will change the market. They will disrupt things. And until we come to a point where, this new asset class that is crypto kind of starts to level out and become a little bit more stable over time, we're going to see a lot of churn and a lot of changes. We can look back at 2017. You look at the top 20, projects out there. Many of them, if not most, don't exist anymore, or they're just ghost names. And I think there's quite a bit more of that to come. And so I would say, like, even the deeper piece of advice there would be, don't just sink money into a 10-year thing and set it and forget it, but pay attention. Start taking these things serious. Not you, but whoever's listening out there that's newer to this is.
Me too, though.
Pay attention.
Everybody should
see what's happening. Start to pick your ponies, if you will, in the market, and there will come times where you need to shift and change what that portfolio looks like, what your holdings look like, and maybe jump onto the newest, most popular thing that's the project du jour, if you will. And that's gonna happen quite a bit over time. I think if I had to guess, there will be more innovation, there will be more changes. There will be struggles, but I'm along for the ride. I'm about it.
Amen, dude. Me too. Speaking of venturing away out of BoomerCoin, if you guys are interested in kind of learning how to do some of this stuff on your own, at least for the technological standpoint, we're doing a course again, the second one, version 2 of the blockchain fundamentals course. And basically, if you're just interested in being able to create your own ERC20 token, hopefully you aren't going to use it to rug people, or create your own NFTs, or just at least learn how this stuff works from a technical standpoint, you guys can hit up developerdirection.com. Also, shout out to the channel sponsor, sevipay.com, SEVIIPay.com. And also, if you have an online business and you just want to be able to accept cryptocurrency easily and expressly, as a form of payments. They do a really good job. I know the owner of the company personally, and yeah, I got it on one of my websites. It works streamlessly. It's easy, super fun. And it, even if you're not a developer, you can integrate it in your website within about 10 seconds because all you have to do is copy and paste something. So definitely check them out, guys. I think they're actually looking for several more beta users for completely free. So if you want to try to hop in on that, hurry up because I think they only have like 2 or 3 left. And that's it. You got anything else, Greg? You want to give people some information how they can contact you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you can look me up on Twitter. I think I want to say it's Greg B33. I don't actually know. But, you guys can find me. I'm around Greg B. I'm in all the various crypto chats and things. So, there's going to be more to come, I think. I'll be expanding my own, work with consultations and helping people out with their own kind of financial coaching and, forward thinking. And, we'll see where things take us over the next couple of years.
For sure. Dan S says, great show, gents. Thank you very much, Dan S. Oh, yeah. And one more thing I forgot to mention, too, dude. John McAfee passed away today. And he was apparently suicided in jail.
I'm going to say it now. John McAfee did not kill himself.
Yeah, I agree. Did you see the tweet? His tweet's already circulating around from back in like 2020 when he was like, hey, if I ever get like Epstein, you guys know it wasn't me.
There's a number of them, and and I will say, rest in peace to Mr. McAfee, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his wife that he leaves behind and his extended family as well. Yeah,
for sure, man. He was a cool dude. He was definitely a cool dude. Rest in peace, John McAfee. All right, fellas, that's gonna do it for us tonight. I will see you guys next time, and we're out.